Home. It's where you build your legacy, where traditions are started, seeds are planted, meals are shared, and stories are told. We are Chris and Natalie Carpenter, owners of Story Real Estate, and our team of top agents helps people find homes in Moscow, Idaho, and around the country.
Have you thought about a move? Contact us to get connected with a top agent who shares your values and puts your family first. Or reach out to us about our Moscow relocation guide.
Wherever you're looking to go, we can help you find home. Call us at Story Real Estate or visit us at storyrealestate.com and start building your legacy.
Hey y'all, welcome to Cross Politic on the Fight Laugh Feast Network. Pastor Toby, Chuck Knox, I'm the water boy. We actually got a great STICKERGATE update.
Oh, that's right.
Coming. Yep.
Good news, bad news?
STICKERGATE.
What's the news?
And we're also going to talk about, disinformation and what are the top 10 most trusted news sites.
Cross politic.
Yeah, and then what are the top 10 news sites you shouldn't trust?
CNN.
You got to stick around for that, though.
Hey, this year our Fight Laugh Feast conference is at the Ark Encounter in Kentucky on the politics of six-day creation. The politics of six-day creation is the difference between a fixed standard of justice and a careening standard of justice. The difference between the corrosive relativism that creates mobs and anarchy and the freedom of objectivity, truth, and due process. The politics of six-day creation establishes the authority and sufficiency of God's word for all of life. From everything from what is a woman, what is a man, when does human life begin, and how is human society best organized? So come out, listen to Ken Ham.
That's heavy.
Pastor Doug Wilson,
Yes.
Dr. Ben Merkel,
Yes.
Dr. Gordon Wilson, me. All of us will be there.
Yep.
Of course, there'll be a live show.
Yep.
Mark your calendars for October 11th through the 14th as we fight, laugh, and feast with beer and psalms, our amazing lineup of speakers, rowdy Christian merch, a Sabbath feast to wrap up the occasion, maybe
I
an
love
infant
those.
baptism while we're at it. I left that part in there for you, Garrison.
It's going to be infant baptism for everybody because they're going through the ark.
Yeah.
I mean,
Peter says something about that.
Yeah.
Sign up today at fightlaughfeast.com to secure your tickets because they're going fast.
They are. They are.
Again, that's fightlaughfeast.com.
All right, so Secretary Pete Buttigieg just finished this amazing negotiation with the railroad union.
Oh,
Remember that? Joe Biden,
Yeah.
It was because Joe Biden cares about the people, about the working people.
Wait. No, Joe's the one who did that. He's told him to get a deal done.
That's right. That's
not
right.
Pete.
Pete was involved.
Pete wanted to get credit for it.
And
I
now,
thought he's on bed rest still. Anyway.
so in the last 10 days, there's been 3 major railway accidents.
Yeah, that we even know about.
That we even know about, yeah.
As
Because
we're
we can't
prepping
even, we're trying to get all this information for what happened in Ohio. Ohio's happened 10 days ago.
Right.
Yep,
And
February
then-
3rd.
This is the one with the chemical explosion.
And then today, 2 happened.
2 today.
One in South Carolina and one in Houston, Texas.
Texas.
Too. So, this is like the chicken thing.
I'm
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I'm. So we're still getting emails. We got in like 8 or 10 more emails just today about the chicken. I'm gonna talk about
Is
that in a
cross
second.
politic turning into like conspiracy theory?
No.
No.
If we did, it'd be good.
Right.
Like,
At this point, it'd probably be right.
Look, the White House is talking about UFOs and aliens. Okay. So
all we're talking about is
We're not-
chickens and chicken feed and trains crashing.
we're talking about if centralization was actually had bad guys behind it, what would it look like?
Yeah.
Right? Like that's actually what we're talking
Yeah,
about.
yeah, yeah.
If centralization actually went through with what so if you look at early Titans turn the century, those guys did not want competition in the market.
Mm-hmm.
So what they did was they submitted to the federal government so that the federal government would create regulations, not
keep
allowing
their monopoly.
competitive
Monopolies.
yeah,
They don't want competition.
Well, actually, it was a
Oligarchy.
No,
Oligarchy. Garpy. Wow. Oligarchy, but
Oligarchy.
monopoly. And all of monopoly.
Oligarchy. Anyway,
Yeah.
so
everyone knows what we're saying right now.
Oligarchy. But that's where they get to control the market so they can keep competition out. That was the whole goal. And so big business was in on it. Well, if you got a big business where everybody owns all of the production of chickens, and the ones that actually are doing good are the free range chickens, right? That's your competition, and you open up a new free range chicken setup,
Coop,
right? And you happen to get it ready at the exact same time that everybody else is not laying eggs, and you happen to control the feed. And you're not a righteous person. It's not hard. That's not really a conspiracy. Look, guys, COVID happened.
Yeah.
That's enough.
Right.
We're arresting people out in the middle of the ocean who are on paddle boards.
Right.
And so I at this point, I want to take a deep look into everything. So what we are is actually gathering information so that everybody can make wise decisions. Trying to.
Okay.
So we actually had one of our producers call on the ground in Ohio, looking for a hazmat specialist, maybe connected to the situation there. And then, of course, they put us through a 1-800 number situation. They're like, oh yeah, call here. So the information's very vague on what we're able to find out. But here's one YouTuber or kind of
TikToker.
I don't want to say TikTok YouTuber. I don't even care if they're on. Anyways. Kind of talking about it. He's not a specialist on chemicals and everything, but he's an engineer of some sorts and all this. So, anyways, listen to what he has to say.
East Palestine's about an hour north of Pittsburgh, almost halfway to Cleveland. Norfolk Southern has a rail line that goes right through town, and this derailment happened right on the edge outside of town. 5 of them contain vinyl chloride. It's a monomer used to make PVC. Vinyl chloride is very hazardous and very flammable. The other thing about vinyl chloride is that it boils at 8 degrees Fahrenheit, so it's shipped in its liquid form, meaning that when these trains crashed and these started leaking, they weren't just leaking liquid, but they were spewing boiling gas. OSHA has the permissible limit of how much you can be exposed to it during an 8-hour shift as a 1 ppm part per million, average over 8 hours. There's maybe 1 million pounds of this toxic chemical spilling into the ground and also boiling off into the air. But then it caught on fire. I think this is where the reporting is really bad because no one is mentioning what the byproduct of vinyl chloride burning is. Of the many byproducts of burning vinyl chloride, one of them is hydrogen chloride. Hydrogen chloride is really unstable and latches onto water, like just water vapor in the atmosphere, and that turns into hydrochloric acid. Ooh. So right now, government officials from the railroad, both the governor of Pennsylvania and Ohio are calling burning off the 1 million pounds of this stuff a success, but not mentioning that it means that we have hundreds of thousands of pounds of acid in the air, potentially.
By the way, it wasn't just caught on fire. From what I understand, it was intentional because they didn't want it to pollute the ground. So they
wanted to burn it off in the atmosphere instead of let it go into the ground.
They created
so now it can
burn-off.
rain down on us.
Yeah.
We don't know yet.
Don't look up.
So there's a lot going on there, and so you have that. But one of the things that really made me investigate this because this is a train spill. There's stuff like this that happens. It could be accidental. But then when you start seeing reporters get arrested as they're trying to convey or cover the story, that's when I start becoming a little cautious of what's going on.
The Ohio Attorney General's office will now oversee the investigation into a reporter's arrest in East Palestine. Police arrested News Nation reporter Evan Lambert when he finished up a live broadcast at a press conference there. Earlier this week, the Columbiana County Prosecutor's Office posted on its Facebook page a little bit ago that once it realized the number of agencies involved in this matter, it turned the case over. Lambert was charged with disorderly conduct and criminal trespassing.
I want to know.
So this is the governor's press conference about the train wreck.
And so I want to know a little more details of why is this problematic? What kind of information was he finding out? What was disorderly about it?
So the accusation is he's being disorderly at a governor's news conference?
He had a film crew there and everything.
Right. Yeah.
But which actually was with one of the local news stations.
Disorderly like BLM or disorderly like singing psalms during a COVID pandemic?
Exactly.
There's a bandwidth there.
Right? like putting stickers up,
exactly.
Complaining about.
But we don't know. Now we have the contact information of the journalist.
We're trying to get him on.
We might be getting him on here. But there just seems like a lot of nefarious stuff going on. Nefarious. Also nefarious. Yeah. What is wrong? It's Monday. I
don't know what's wrong with
oligopoly. Yeah. Yep, I got my producer to laugh on that one.
But one of the things that I've noticed is that whenever they always remember when BP happened?
Yeah.
The big oil spill.
Yeah, the big oil spill. One of the things I remember with BP was they always said, "Hey, it's not as bad as you think." Right. That's the first. And then there's like not a whole lot of news.
And then you get all the journalists out there, and they're sending you pictures of
thousands and millions of gallons of oil all over the ocean, and it's coming
all these
up,
seagulls covered in oil, and you're like, "Oh, that looks kind of bad."
That looks bad to me. Yeah. I just want more details. Right. That's all we want is more details. And actually, if you're out there and you live anywhere close, could you send us what your experience is? I've seen videos of fish that are dead inside of the river. I've seen frogs that
Ohio
are dead.
River?
Yeah. And I've seen horrible clouds of smoke contamination and from the burnout. And people are like, this is 10 miles away. Mm-hmm. And people I guess officially, if you were a mile within the damaged area, you were evacuated. Now they said everybody can come back in. But a lot of reports, people say their eyes are itching. And there's a lot of things going on physically. And even their animals have died. Their chickens have died. I wonder if that's connected to it. Anyway, but it's just that I would like to know. And so until we have, one of the first thoughts that came in our mind with this is like, okay, we can't trust any of the sources. Even the guy that we have here, I don't know this guy. Mm-mm. But what I do know is there's churches. So can we find a church in the area that is on the ground? What's our closest trusted resource that we have? Yeah. And so we have calls in to see, hey, can you guys tell us what's going on as you're serving people down there? Because that's so we're going to have to reimagine how we do media now, how we do news, how we do journalism, because we can't trust.
But God's given us iPhones.
That's right.
And eyes and ears.
Yeah.
And
take some footage.
And the family of God.
Yeah. So if you live in that area, reach out to us at contact@fightlaughfeast.com, contact@fightlaughfeast.com. We'd love to, if you have a connection in the area, a pastor in that area, someone that you trust in that area. So this disinformation risk assessment came out by the Global Disinformation Index, which apparently our government also gives a little money to.
Global Disinformation Index. What is that?
This is this organization puts out a global disinformation index. So they actually put out one for each country. Chile, everyone. They did one for America.
Oh,
and so they have this way of assessing. They have their own standards of how they assess. Is this a trustworthy organization or not a trustworthy? High risk? Are they high risk?
Who are they?
Yeah, well, you can go.
I just start when you showed this to me in the notes. I just started laughing. Yeah. It's hilarious. It's hilarious.
It's
top 10 lowest risk online news outlets. The very first one, NPR.
Yeah. Number one. So that's the one you can trust the most. Right. Number one was NPR.
Least risk level.
No, that should tell you not to read anything else after that.
Number two is AP News.
Yeah.
that got Bill laughing. Number three, New York Times. Number four, ProPublica.org, Insider.com, USA Today, Washington Post, Washington Street Journal, BuzzFeed News, and HuffPo.
Washington Post.
Washington Post?
Washington Post and Wall Street.
No, Wall Street's not on there.
Yeah, it is. WSJ.
Oh, there it is, number 9.
Yeah.
And Huffington Post.
Yeah, HuffPo.
Huffington Post.
Okay. So with that said, the top 10 highest, riskiest
news outlets. Number 1, Cross Politics.
I was going to say, we got to be number 1 on there.
No. New York Post, of course.
Which was the only one that truthfully reported on the Biden laptop story.
On the Biden laptop story.
All the other news organizations called it misinformation.
Yeah.
Crazy. New York Post, you have Reason.com, you have RealClearPolitics.com, Daily Wire, Blaze, The Federalist, One American Network, Newsmax, The American Conservative, and The Spectator. And we know those guys over The Spectator, too.
This goes back to what I was
half
saying
our
earlier,
friends are on that list.
We're number 11.
But
I'm a little disappointed. Like, there's these top 10 Christian podcast lists that come out. I don't want to be on those.
But I want to be on this
list.
Top 10 riskiest online news outlet. We are risky.
Was I talking to you about this?
I'm disappointed we didn't make the list.
How modern day journalism came about. Was I talking about on the show? Where basically in England they started through coffee shops, through people having conversation at coffee shops.
Yeah, what's the word?
But then in America, they started having them at pubs.
Yes.
Right? And so the guy who was hosting the bar was a publican, right? And they used to have people come in with their stories that were written down what was going on in different parts of the world. And the publican would publish these stories and hold them at the end of the bar. And so it started to become public news because it was a public gathering of people that came to the pub. At the pub. And then that's how we started to get modern news stories was from the publican who had everybody come together. It sounds like the Reformation, right? Like you got these guys, all these guys coming together.
Printing it all together.
But that's where the news was. And they were, I think one of the guys in the modern news or during that era of news was saying, hey, man, the only thing that happened there is the talk of Christendom advancing. Right? That's what was right. So news was related to the relationship between Christ and what was going on in the rest of the world. And then they would publish that for everybody else. But it all came from a pub. From a pub. People gathering together.
The community gathering.
And talking about the news that they were eyewitnesses to.
Yeah. And that's what we want Cross Politic to be. Cross Politic is the new pub.
That's right.
Hey. The new news pub.
I could do with that.
Right?
I like that.
We're gathered around, hanging out.
Drinking beer, coffee, tea, water.
So if you got a news story, send them to contact
Share it with us.
crosspolitic.com, right?
Yeah. Next up.
Contact at fightlifefeast.com.
Oh, I'm already getting Cross Politic.
STICKERGATE.
Yeah.
What's going on with that?
STICKERGATE.
We'll find out next on Cross Politic.
Hi, I'm Robert Borton, CEO of Classical Conversations, the world's largest classical Christian homeschooling community. I'm launching a new podcast, Refining Rhetoric. If you like cross politics or just listen to hear what crazy stuff they're saying today, you will enjoy Refining Rhetoric. You can find us on your favorite podcast platform. I practice the 15 tools of learning by interviewing great guests, looking at current events, and talking about cryptocurrency.
Welcome back to Cross Politic. Cross Politic is the 11th riskiest online news source in the world.
Gotta move that up.
Reformation Heritage Books is a publisher and bookseller whose mission is by the Spirit's grace to aim for the conversion of unbelievers and equip the saints to serve Christ and his church through biblical, experiential, and practical ministry via books, tracts, and other resources. Reformation Heritage Books is committed to the conviction that the scriptures of the Old and New Testaments, as originally written, are God's inerrant word, inspired by his Spirit, and therefore are the only sufficient, infallible authority for faith and practice. Foundational to the mission of Reformation Heritage Books is its identity as a confessionally reformed publisher. So visit their website today at heritagebooks.org for more information. That's heritagebooks.org. We're very grateful to have with us on this segment Mr. Robert Muise. He's an attorney, co-founder of American Freedom Law Center, former Marine Corps veteran, and him and his wife have 12 children.
Ooh, 12.
Robert,
yes, sir.
Thank you for joining us on Cross Politic.
Hey, it's great to be with you. I need to correct you, though, right out of the box. There's I'm not an ex-Marine. There's no such thing as an ex-Marine. Once a Marine, always a Marine.
Okay. Do you baptize them babies? Is that what you're doing? You baby baptize?
One more correction, too. I usually don't describe myself as a lawyer, but as a Marine with a law degree.
Hey.
So that's my
fighter.
My approach.
He's a fighter.
I like this guy. I do.
So Rob, we talked last week offline, and I won my federal case against the city of Moscow regarding them overstepping my First and Fourth Amendment rights. And then for those who are either new to this whole situation and have been kind of tuning in or following along, in October 2020, my buddy Nate and his kids protested my arrest.
Right.
And the way they protested, Nate just printed up a bunch of stickers and that said, was it "Welcome to Moscow"?
Soviet
Moscow. Enforced because we care. And then there's a hammer and sickle in the middle of the sticker.
Right.
That was the design. And enforced because we care was the city's slogan
for masking.
To kind of force you to wear masks if you can't stand 6 feet apart in town. So that's they protested. They woke up at like 3 a.m, went and plastered stickers on friendly businesses and, God forbid, streetlight poles. City poles.
Oh my
God! Now, they had stickers already plastered on them.
And garage sale stuff on there, I think, too.
And garage sale
and
stuff.
Lost kittens.
Yeah.
It's always lost kittens.
And so cops came at 3 a.m. They handcuffed the 18-year-old and then interrogated the 14-year-old without a mom and dad present or a lawyer present. Okay. Interrogated the underage kid without a lawyer present. And the cops lied, said there's no videotape of this for a year. Anyways, that videotape comes out and so forth. But the whole thing started because they're just protesting, using free speech, protesting my arrest.
Yeah. And the arrest of Sean and Rachel
Bonet.
Bonet.
That's right.
Yeah.
And then the cops didn't cite them that day.
Right. Just kind of warned them.
3-4 days later, the cops pull up to Nate's door and writes him 13 misdemeanor tickets for him and his sons.
Yeah.
Nate's ticket was a conspiracy to commit a crime or something like that because he ordered the tickets.
The stickers.
The stickers.
Yeah.
And he was asleep and the boys got their misdemeanors were for violating a city code that applied to like yard sale signs. You can't post a yard sale sign on a city pole kind of thing.
Which has never been enforced.
Never been enforced, like the 50-year history of the code.
Right
or
after the
something like
signing, didn't they actually clean off all the poles?
Yeah.
In the right afterwards?
For a few days.
Yeah.
They're covered again. But so Robert, you have picked up the case. Fill in the gaps. What did we get this right? I mean, is this basically the lay of the land? We're trying to keep up, but tell us what's going on and where we're at now.
Yeah, by and large, that's correct. They were cited with 13 misdemeanors. Nate, who produced the decals, had nothing to do with the posting of them. Was charged with being an accessory to posting them. And, the main problem that the city has is, under the 14th Amendment, you can't selectively prosecute people, particularly for an invidious reason, such as the person's religious beliefs or because they're exercising a constitutional right, which is plainly what happened in this case. As you mentioned, there's a city ordinance that they used that has never been enforced in the past. And the city of Moscow, a university town, has a long-standing practice of allowing people to post on city poles all sorts of public issue, political messages. It is a long-standing policy and practice, and in fact, as we would argue, they've created a forum for this type of speech. Not uncommon in university towns. They have these message kiosks and things all over the place. So they've never enforced this in this manner. And you mentioned when they went to clean up the poles, they actually sent out workers just to remove the Soviet Moscow protest decals, left everything in place. And then later on, they sent another group of workers who went out and removed additional stickers, but they left up decals that were actually pretty critical of Christ Church. And some profanity in terms of directed towards Christ Church and towards I believe it's Douglas Wilson, who's the pastor of the church. And I think one of the nicknames for the members of the church is Kirkers. And there's all kinds of, really hateful things that were said. And they left those up there with no problem. So this was plainly selective prosecution going after the Wilsons because they don't like Christ Church. And I know, you mentioned, Gabe, your arrest. My understanding, that was an event that was kind of organized as part of Christ Church.
That's right.
A psalm sing that was done in protest to these draconian COVID restrictions that have been enforced in basically, liberal cities across the country. And so we have multiple claims, including a selective prosecution, a violation of the right to freedom of speech. There's a longstanding principle of law that once the government opens up a forum for speech, they can't restrict it based on the viewpoint of the speaker, regardless of whether or not a public forum is created. Viewpoint discrimination is the most egregious form of content discrimination and is prohibited in any form. As a matter of fact, I had a case many years ago down at Camp Lejeune on a military base. I represented a retired gunnery sergeant whose son was killed on the USS Cole by Islamic terrorists. And he was actually, not only as a retiree does he have base privileges, he has a base decal, he can go on and off the base, but he also was a civil servant working on the base at the time. And he had decals on the back of his vehicle that said, "Remember the USS Cole and stop Islamic terrorism." And they told him, you can't bring that vehicle on the base. You either scrape those stickers off or you scrape off your base decal. What? He's like, I'm not scraping these stickers off. So they forced him to scrape his base decal off, wouldn't allow him back on base. We sued in federal court. Military installations are certainly not public forums in any respect. There's all sorts of restrictions you can impose on people coming into a military base. And the federal judge down in North Carolina ruled in our favor and said it was a viewpoint discrimination. It was a violation of his First Amendment rights, and he was able to go back on the base with those decals on his vehicle. So it's a very similar principle here in this particular case. Oh. And the one Rory Wilson was the only one that actually was prosecuted, and his case is on appeal. They ended up just dismissing without explanation the charges against Nathan, and then with his minor son Seamus. He was prosecuted by the county prosecutor because under the law, juveniles have to be prosecuted by the county and not the city. And the county prosecutor kind of saw the lay of the land of what was going on here, because they were trying to get a settlement. The city was out of this juvenile before going forward, and the county prosecutor said, "I'll tell you what, you write a paper about civil protest, and we'll dismiss all charges." So Seamus wrote a paper describing the hypocrisy of the city of going after him and violating all his rights, and the county prosecutor was like, "Perfect, charges dismissed." But it just goes to show you what what the city's animosity towards towards the Wilsons and Christ Church, and even the one of the prosecutors, the city prosecutors, Warner, she had some text messages that were very using profanity directed towards Christ Church members and the Wilson family. Yep. So there's plenty of evidence to show that this was a vindictive prosecution, selective prosecution, based on the fact that they were members of this Christ Church community and that they were exercising rights protected by the First Amendment. Because the only stickers and decals that they removed were ones that were critical of the city, and that's a problem for the city.
Right.
So do they not? If that's the case, why is this even still a case? Because they have to know that at the end of this, they can't win, right? This is, just at the idea of, hey, you mean to tell me you've never enforced this law at all, and then you only scraped? I would just hear this case and be like, you know what, this is insane. This is stupid. We're not doing this. This is as somebody who has assess as a prosecutor to take it on. Like, nah, this is not worth our time. This is going to end bad. Let's not do it. They clearly are capable of running that assessment, and yet they're still moving forward with this.
Why?
Why?
Well, and just to be clear, they dismissed against Nathan because I think they probably made that judgment that juries realized, and the county prosecutor made that same judgment with regard to Seamus. Now we sued them in federal court, right? So because we're asking for damages too in this case. Nate is as you know, he produces videos, and he's a book author. He's an author, and he had to hold fast on doing that. He was prosecuted. He had this hanging over his head for like 18 months. And they have all these contract provisions when you enter into contract with Netflix or these other groups that he worked with, that if you violate laws and so forth, they can end up taking your own intellectual property. So he didn't want to risk producing something that if he ends up being prosecuted, it could end up being taken from him at great cost. So he had to really impose on himself for 18 months with not being able to produce any of his work product for fear that he would lose it because of this prosecution. And this is the thing that drives me crazy. I sue and just government con law 101, right? Your constitutional rights are only violated by the government, right? So people tell me all the time, "Oh, Walmart wouldn't let me hand out these Bible tracts in their store." It's like, well, Walmart doesn't have to let you do that. They're a private actor. It's a break on the government, the power of government.
Wow.
But the fact that the government, I see this too often. It's like they just nonchalant. Oh, I'll just charge this person, or I'm representing several pro-lifers, and I represent them all the time. And I don't do much criminal work, but I defend the pro-lifers when they're arrested for trespass and so forth. And they're just so vindictive. They use the power of government. They work for us, right? And that's why, like, what's going on right now in Washington D.C. I got a lot of lawsuits against the federal government because they have weaponized the federal government to go after people of faith. They just released this report, that it leaked out of FBI office in Maryland. Traditional Catholics are right-wing extremists because they have extreme views on abortion and LGBTQ. Mm-hmm. Yeah, no more extreme than what God has about those particular issues. But they're just weaponizing the government, and I'm very happy to see this House Judiciary Committee is going after that, right? The weaponization of government. To me, this is one of the most important committees in my lifetime that's been put together, and I'm hoping that they really can get to the bottom of this. Because when you have the government that's doing that, that's really the definition of tyranny. The FBI has become the KGB, unfortunately.
Wow.
And going after pro-lifers. You heard that, probably the story of Mark Houck, pro-lifer who was outside.
We just had him on the show.
Yeah, even the local prosecutor said there's nothing here, but the DOJ goes after him for a violation of the Freedom of Access to Clinic Entrances Act.
Yeah. That
is just an absolute abuse of government power, government authority. And we can't have it. We don't live in a tyrannical, society.
Rob, why did Rory, actually his case went to trial in the city of Moscow, and he lost.
Yeah.
The jury convicted Rory, basically, right?
Yes.
Why did that? How did if he has freedom of speech, how's he getting convicted?
Well, that's right. Well, that case is on appeal, and a number of the issues, and I'm not handling that case, but I did read some of the briefing on it. The judge wouldn't let him even bring a First Amendment argument to this.
Insane,
right? I mean, there were so many things that he was denied, in my view, denied due process. Right. And so if the jury is only told, okay, here's what the ordinance is. The ordinance says if you post anything on a city pole without permission from the city, you've committed a misdemeanor. Did they have express permission from the city? No, but they weren't allowed to make the arguments that, look, the city's created this forum for this speech. We have a First Amendment right to do so. There were so many restrictions placed on them. And that's one of the problems I have often with these, even when I do some of the criminal work, is that the government always wants to make this, a very sterile argument.
Yep.
Here's the law and here's the facts and, you're guilty. And the problem with that is that, we have a jury system for a reason, because it's the community who gets to decide whether or not somebody is guilty or innocent of a particular crime. It's not the judge's decision. It's not the prosecutor's decision. It's not even the legislator's decision. Mm-hmm. It's a jury of your peers. And, one of the things that irritates me to no end is that you're not allowed to make a quote unquote jury nullification argument, which is always very tempting and difficult to avoid. And, defending pro-lifers when they're trespassing at an abortion center, to not point out that, this is Auschwitz, where they're, killing unborn babies. Yep. And, the people that should be arrested are the ones that are in there killing the babies, not the ones who are praying outside these, these abortion mills. Man. But, we have a jury system for a reason, but the jury system only works if you can you can present all the arguments and facts and so forth to the jury. And my understanding was this case is on appeal, and they're appealing many of the decisions of the judge who tailored what evidence could be presented in a way that favored the prosecution to the disfavor of Rory. So they're hoping to get a reversal of that conviction on appeal.
Rob, can you stick around for a second?
I can.
Okay, all right. We're going to talk to you a little bit more about this, because I got some questions, especially about the limitation of the federal government. And
I also want to ask how judges can limit things like that.
Like the First Amendment. No First Amendment.
If you're single, get married. If you're married, have you some kids. And if you have kids, go baptize them. Until tomorrow, love God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. Love your neighbor as yourself. Go fight, laugh, and feast. This is Cross Politics.
See you
backstage.
Backstage.
Yeah. While God created the world, the morning stars sang together. After God delivered Israel through the Red Sea, Moses and Miriam led the people in singing. God destroyed Israel's enemies under King Jehoshaphat, while the choir sang. When Jesus was born, the angels sang, and before going to the cross, he sang. God rejoices over us with singing, and one of the only things we know for certain that everyone will be doing in heaven is singing. At New St. Andrews College, we understand that music is not an elective. It is central to our being and identity. We endeavor to train all our students in a joyful and robust musical literacy that will help them shape culture in a Christ-like direction wherever they go. Additionally, we offer the Certificate of Music in conjunction with our bachelor's degree in liberal arts and culture for students who desire extra music training beyond the regular music courses they will take as a part of the core curriculum. In the certificate program, you won't simply appreciate music or listen to it or talk about it. You will do music. You will study it, analyze it, read it, write it, sing it, and play it. You will receive private instruction in your primary instrument, as well as secondary lessons in voice, piano, conducting, and other instruments. You will receive a solid foundation in music theory and analysis. You will study music history, church music, and music pedagogy. And when you graduate, you will leave with the ability to sing, play, understand, and steward music in whatever church or community you plant yourself. I'm Dr. David Erb, and this is the Certificate of Music at New St. Andrews College.
Putting off writing that proposal again? Yeah, we've been there. Proposal writing can be tough. It takes work, and if you're not careful, you can set up your company for failure. Well, that's where we come in. Smart Pricing Table is an innovative application that focuses on, well, the pricing table. Instead of a static document and constant back and forth, our platform creates interactive proposals that empower your prospects. Not sure if something is needed? Make it optional. Have complicated services that vary? Let your customer do the work with line item upsells. Have reoccurring services? Easy peasy. With Smart Pricing Table, you can create attractive proposals quickly. And our system is built for reuse, so you can get out of that hamster wheel. Give your customers choice and close deals quickly with Smart Pricing Table.